The Jubilee government has claimed that instead of the 5 stadia pledged in the Jubilee Manifesto in 2013, they're actually well on way to deliver 9 stadia across the entire country. Now, that statement was made by Deputy President William Ruto as Jubilee launched their 2017 manifesto at Kasarani a short while ago.
As we talk today, I know I have heard many people discuss about, okay, you made promises, you haven't kept some of them. As we talk today, in 6 months' time, the stadium in Wote will be complete. In 3 months' time, the stadium in Chuka will be complete. In 3 months' time, the stadium in Moyale will be complete. In 6 months' time, the stadium in Kamarin in West Pokot, which is historic, will be complete. In a couple of months, the stadium in Eldoret will be complete.
Politics, half-truths, flavored empty promises in smooth talks, and online rabble-rousers, a vote-hunting toolbox for most politicians ahead of Kenya's 2022 general election. This comes with a cloudburst of misinformation to shape perceptions. Its severe ramifications could not be overlooked. With less than 8 months to Kenya's general election, temperatures are rising and campaigns are in full gear, at least 2 months ahead of schedule. The polls are slated for August 9, 2022, in what is seen to be a closely contested election between incumbent Deputy President William Ruto and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, with social media campaigns taking the center stage now more than in previous polls. As we approach the election season, it is worth noting Kenya has been strained by election misinformation before. The fake news crescendo is a concern given the country's recent political history. Since the 2007-2008 polls, Raila Odinga has been widely favored to win the election on social media. When the results did not go his way, violence ensued in some parts of the country amidst claims of voter fraud. In the 2007 election, for instance, more than 1,000 lives were lost. Investigations were launched into how the election was conducted and covered. The country's media law was consequently altered. The government would occasionally raid media houses to police content being shared. Most Kenyan journalists termed it as a ruse for enacting a gag law. Having been enacted less than a decade ago, the statute now appears to be outmoded. This is explained by majority of media misconduct is happening online, oppositely on air and print. In Kenya, advertising laws do not apply to social media. Politicians are now actively selling their agendas on social networking platforms since majority of the targeted voters have internet access. A recent social media report shows that there were 11 million social media users in Kenya in January 2021. The numbers of social media users increased by 2.2 million from the year before. Bravin Yuri, a famous influencer with over 200,000 followers, tells me politicians now rent social media bigwigs who present themselves as political think tanks and analysts to set their agendas online. The bigwigs have over 1 million followers and can pull more engagement numbers than the mainstream media.
Yeah, currently, right now with the pandemic, I think majority of politicians will be online and trying to push their campaigns online. And that's why you're seeing even the campaigns are already intensified on social media, like Twitter currently. So many people are consuming social media content. And media can build or break you. And that includes social media. Social media is also media. And right now, there are people who are controlling, who have even numbers more than our mainstream medias. There are people, individuals, but they have a lot of following than even the mainstream media. So those are the people who can even build or break someone. So if they post misinformation, then they will reach even a huge audience than even the mainstream media, and people will believe what they post to be the truth.
A poll conducted recently revealed that 7 out of 10 Twitter users are willing to push political tags for money without caring whether the information they are peddling is misleading. Bravin confirms that money beats ethics in the influencing sector in Kenya.
I've seen most of the people doing it for money. Like, they don't consider whether you do good or bad. Today they might be supporting this person, tomorrow they'll support the other person. And sometimes even these politicians don't know how it works. So you'll find that, yes, someone is trending, but the person who is pushing that has no political stand. Today is supporting this other side of politics, tomorrow is supporting the other side. So you'll find it becomes a bit tricky in that way. So those are influencers who do not work on their own ethics. And that is how they have probably even defamed the whole influencing field in Kenya, that is. Yeah.
We caught up with another popular influencer who revealed to us the influencers underworld network involving high-ranking politicians sponsoring misinformation campaigns operates. He, however, agreed to speak to us under the condition of anonymity, fearing repercussions from people he describes as powerful. We will nickname him Mr. X. Mr. X has been working as an influencer for almost half a decade now. He operates 10 pseudo and catfish accounts which have more than 15,000 followers each. He uses these accounts for political spins, propaganda, and smearing campaigns hashtags, and only uses his real account, which has more than 50,000 followers, for corporate brand promotion and advocacy.
You cannot survive on a Twitter job without catfish. Like, at least you must have 10, at least. You cannot survive.
Catfish accounts.
Yes, catfish accounts that nobody knows that they are yours. Nobody, totally. Then you have your main account. That's forever clean. Never tweet anything, but you're in that space. A friend of yours is asking you, who's being this tag? I know I'm in that cousin amchafua, but hezi jua niko. Yes, that's the only survival way for bloggers and influencers. You must have at least 10 if you want to survive a daily bread on Twitter. Must have at least 10, each 10,000 followers and above. No more, no less.
Okay, so maybe at most, do you know maybe someone who has the most like extraordinary number of catfish accounts?
Yeah, there are people with more than even 40, but let's stop at there.
With a straight face, Mr. X says he does not give a hoot about the impact of disinformation he peddles, since poverty is the enemy. He confesses that the disinformation he engages in has the potential of stirring a post-election violence, but maintains only politicians and not influencers are to blame.
Yes, that's my daily bread. That's my daily bread. Like, what's the enemy? Poverty. Yeah, I need money at the end of the day. I don't care this is my brother, I'm tarnishing his name. I don't care this is my mom. I don't care this is my dad. At the end of the day, I need to have a +1 in my account. No more, no less. Tell me that these politicians looks like this. These politicians does this. These politicians does this. And it's totally wrong, totally false. I don't care. At the end of the day, I write. Come tomorrow, the same politician was tarnishing his other name, gives me money, and say that he or she is good. Still back. I do the same. The enemy is poverty. So we don't care whether it's true. But at the end of the day, like, it's knowingly that I know this is false. I always do it. And I've never been apologetic for that because I need money. Yeah, sure.
So basically, what you're saying is that you're just doing it for the sake of
money. Yeah. Only, nothing else.
Okay. From your position,
yeah.
Do you think maybe this misinformation that maybe influencers will post online,
yeah,
do they have an impact in the 2022 election?
Of course they do. Yeah, like there are some positive tags that may imply that this candidate is the best, is going to win, and probably he or she might win. There are some tags that are like, I may say they are profiling, and this, sorry to say, this may cause like a post-election violence, because the content that you are sharing online, it's so I don't know how to say it. It's so sensitive that it may cause a post-election violence. Probably it can. So at the end of the day, like the people sponsoring the tags need to be advised, because on the part of bloggers and the influencers, you cannot advise us.
Mr. X is engineering political hashtags involving disinformation. propaganda and smearing campaigns for presidential candidates, MPs, governors, senators, and members of county assemblies. According to him, it cost a politician between 20,000 Kenyan shillings to 100,000 Kenyan shillings, depending on the client's status and the job at hand, to make the politician's agenda trend for a few hours on Twitter.
For a presidential candidate, because it has to trend from morning to evening, or even just to the other day, it may cost 50,000 and above for per day. That's one day. When we go to MCM, you give like 20,000, 10,000, but it will trend for 3 to 4 hours. It disappears from the Twitter timeline. For MP, the budget keeps fluctuating from 30, 40, 50, but it can't trend for the whole day, just for a few hours.
It also depends with the candidate. That is, for example, you'll probably not charge an MCA the same cost you'll charge a presidential candidate, when it comes to pushing a campaign. Because when it comes to an MCA, it's probably a small area you have to reach. But when it comes to a presidency, you have to do a huge impact that will at least affect the whole nation. So it's definitely different, and it depends with the rate card of each influencer for you to actually get the cost of each campaign. Yeah.
How do politicians establish contact with influencers? How does the transaction take place? Politicians use their social media handlers, public communication and digital strategists, or communication directors to approach the influencers via text messages. They negotiate the fee before the influencer mobilizes a group of around 20 to 30 other influencers who have more than 10,000 followers each. The mobilization mainly happens on messaging app WhatsApp, where they form a group. Notably, those being mobilized mostly don't even know the client.
Most political campaigns don't go via agency. Most of them, mostly they do, for example, they have their own social media handlers, etc. So they are the people who probably will give these jobs to influencers that probably they know of, that align with their brands. So that is what happens most of the time. So most of the political hashtags, they don't go through, let's say, agencies. Most of them go directly to influencers. Then the influencers are hired. For example, if I'm given a job by a politician, let's say they have an event, they have a campaign that they want to make trend, then I'll have to go and look for people who align themselves with that kind of politician. Then I'll have them on the campaign. Yeah. That is how it works most of the time.
Then the politician is required to deposit at least half of the fee and the rest after the task. The 50% payment will be shared among the influencers in the group, while the other half goes directly to the mobilizer. Payment could be in form of mobile money transfer or check. No contracts are signed. One's word is their bond. Mr. X, however, says most politicians occasionally contact him directly without intermediaries. In instances where influencers have to use sensitive graphics for smearing campaigns, Mr. X says they include professional graphic designers in their mobilized WhatsApp group. Or sometimes the politician forwards these sensitive graphical images they want to be used against their opponents.
The WhatsApp group we have, it's a full brand. We have a graphic designer. We have like a content creator. We have the most influential person in that group. Yeah, so sometimes the graphics come from the client, the content comes from the client, but sometimes, like, if the client has given you this content and you feel it's so sensitive, you must go your way and just tilt it a bit, but still match the client's one. But the client just tells you this and this. I want this guy, his name tarnished, based on these graphics. We just tell the client, say no more. We know what to do. We know what to type.
Tribalistic hashtag like Wakikuyu Mtafinywa, which trended in Kenya on December 16, 2021, with over 1,000 tweets aiming at fearmongering Kikuyus of DP William Ruto's presidency. Most tweets in the trend came from faceless Trips accounts that showed high likelihood of being bots when gauged on Botometer. The hashtag claims that DP Ruto has a vendetta against Kikuyus and that his presidency will haunt the Mount Kenya residents. Mount Kenya votes have been the center of attention for both William Ruto and Raila Odinga. Our open source investigations led us to other hashtags. In the early mornings of 27th November, Ruto, the Meru enemy, was the top trend on Twitter. The tag was seemingly asking the deputy president to apologize to the Meru community for alleged attacks on their leaders. Other hashtags targeting the DP include Hungry Ruto, Ruto Atatumaliza, and Hurubaro per capita. On the flip side, Raila Odinga has also been targeted with a fair share of online slander and smearing campaigns under the hashtag Raila State Project and Azimio la Mawe, which aimed at portraying him as a violent man, among many other hashtags. According to Bravin Yuri, political spins, smearing campaigns, and propaganda campaigns involve robust coordination between the client and the influencers. The clients and the influencers strategically choose the day and time to set their agendas depending on what is trending.
It's definitely a prearranged thing. It's not that you just wake up as influencer, then you do. You know, trending requires a coordination between influencers. So you just don't wake up, then you just say, let's target so and so. You know, it's a communication. There's someone who wants probably a conversation surrounding this thing to actually happen. So they'll go to influencers. Then influencers will definitely do their thing. They'll go start a conversation on that topic, preferred hashtag, that is if it's given to them. Then they have a conversation on the same. So other people will come to join in. And when they join in and contribute, that is how it ends up trending. Because it doesn't just trend on its own. It's people who contribute to the conversation that make it trend. If you don't contribute to it, then it will not trend. So people contribute because they feel there is something worth talking about, or probably some are even discrediting the hashtag, but even doing so, you are also still making it even get a wider reach. So at the end of the day, it will trend. So it's a communication that from a client who wants something to happen to influencers, then influencers execute it.
Citing unrest witnessed in the previous general elections, Yuri says that the deluge of misinformation will most likely affect Kenyans when it comes to voter suppression, candidate eligibility, incitement to interfere with democratic processes, and election integrity.
Even in the last general election, there was a lot of misinformation. Too much misinformation, and that's why there were a lot of problems when it came to that election. When it comes to 2022, I think right now it's time that even the government itself comes in and helps to contain misinformation. Because if you look at the amount of misinformation that is spreading in Kenya right now, it is too much. And what happens is, you know, for example, the people we're talking about who are in the interior, they're not on Twitter, some of them don't even own TVs. Yeah, some of them just get their news, for example, in WhatsApp groups. They're from doing their works, then they just get the screenshots on WhatsApp. Then they also share, you know, without even confirming with mainstream media or even other news outlets if this information actually is true. So what happens is people believe the misinformation more, and they even make political decisions based on the misinformation.
Mary Kulundu, an AFP fact-check reporter, says politicians engage in propaganda to shape perceptions that would either benefit them or handicap their opponents. She, however, warns that some sensitive online disinformation campaigns are tantamount to incitement that could trigger violence on the ground. The fact-checker adds that the media has a huge role to play ahead of the 2022 general election. Amidst concerns, it is not doing enough to contain misinformation.
It is very irresponsible for the media to pick tweets and use them to form a basis of information without verification. And the media has a huge role to play as we head into the 2022 general election, and this cannot be overemphasized. Media needs to be responsible to the audience it is serving by providing truthful information. Media must verify every piece of information it selects to broadcast or publish. Speed and the need to be fast with information must be secondary in this digital space where it appears there is competition for likes or numbers of interaction.
Yes.
And media organization will do themselves a great service to have a staff that is well trained to detect sophisticated forms of misinformation or disinformation, because at times this misinformation and disinformation is circulating in forms of videos, in forms of pictures, and at times, if you do not have the tools, you do not have the capacity to distinguish whether this particular video has been manipulated or not.
To some extent, the media has been accused of promoting misinformation with reference to a recent move by a leading news outlet to write a story based on a tweet from a parody account impersonating someone else.
Well, we've seen misinformation affecting the democratic process. And if my memory serves me right, during the 2017 general election, the front page of a newspaper, I don't know, I wouldn't mention, I can't mention which newspaper, in a certain region in Kenya was manipulated and circulated online to claim that a certain candidate had withdrawn from the election. The ripple effect of this is supporters of this candidate will say, if the person I prefer is not vying, so there's no need to head to the ballot. And this, in essence, is voter suppression to favor a certain candidate. On candidate eligibility, we have seen candidates' eligibility being questioned based on bogus claims, and this is part of the politics of the day being played out on digital platforms. So it exists.
The big question remains, why is the government not holding propaganda and smearing campaigns peddlers accountable? Reporting for Lenscope Media, my name is Sigomba Ramadhan Omar.
Lenscope Media, where bold stories live.